Welcome to the CEO Launch Podcast.
We are a dynamic mother-daughter duo bringing you personality, insights, and practical advice from two different generations of entrepreneurship.
We aren't just mother and daughter. We are also best friends and business partners.
I've watched my mom help thousands of entrepreneurs start the businesses of their dreams, including me. And now it's your turn.
In the previous episode, we discussed the importance of passion and purpose in your entrepreneurial journey. If you missed it, go back and check it out. But today we want to talk about the sacrifices of entrepreneurship. We know social media, especially the gram, will make entrepreneurship look so easy.
Definitely. Every Instagram ad I see is either a coach or, somebody trying to tell you how they made six figures from online classes and all of those different things. And it's not something that I'm necessarily against, but they definitely didn't do it in 3 months or however long they're saying that the boot camp is.
Or a year. I do their taxes, so I know. Let's talk about some of the things that we have to give up in entrepreneurship. So how about this? How about if I start with you this time, Kenya?
Oh, I get to get interviewed. I like it. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So when you think about your business, what is one of the biggest sacrifices that you've made in starting your business or running your business?
I would definitely say my biggest sacrifice in this moment is split between time and money in a couple different ways. Money in that, you know this about me, I am not a DIY entrepreneur. I'm not a DIY anything, honestly.
That's the truth. That is so true.
Yeah, I'm not a DIY homeowner. I'm not gonna paint any of the walls. Somebody else is gonna come in and do it. So with my business, I'm very similar. I try not to do things that I am not good at or cannot learn quickly. And if I know somebody that's good at that, I'm like, I would much rather pay you to be good at this so that, I'm not exhausted trying to learn this new skill. And that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm willing to not get Starbucks every week or, cancel. I canceled my HBO subscription after Insecure ended because I was like, we don't need to do this anymore. But, making those minor tweaks to just make sure that I can fund and invest in my business long time. The second one would definitely be time. And my flip side to that is that time for me, I invest the time after work that I could be relaxing, but I still kind of invest in having my time by paying for different things. So those are kind of my sacrifices.
And you know what? As you were talking, I kind of wanted to flip the question, and I don't think I should be asking the question to myself, but I wanted to kind of chime in on your response because some of the things you said, you probably got it from your mom because I too am not the DIY homeowner. And unfortunately, my mom, your grandma, is always shaking her head at us because she is that person. She's the one she's got all these great ideas. And not only does she have the ideas, she knows how to do this stuff. And we're like, yeah, we'll just pay somebody. So
right. Grandma will create an entire, build a whole house and we'll just be like, wow.
That was nice.
Gonna hire a constructor. It'll be amazing. And we'll just be like, nope, not in me.
And you know what? I'm so grateful to hear your answer to that question because you are learning that very early on. And that's one of the things that makes me the most proud is that I always used to say this to you, listen, girl, don't make the same mistakes I make. Go make your own stupid mistakes, right? And so that was definitely a mistake that I made in the beginning, trying to do stuff myself, or I call it now the DIY overload. Yes, I know how to do WordPress, but listen, I'm not doing my website. I did it before. And it looked like I did it. So, so now I don't. And, and even when we talked about doing this podcast, we, unanimously, without even having a conversation, we both were on the same wavelength. Hey, We are not doing our own graphics. That's why we have Keisha. Shout out to Keisha at Barnum Creative Research. Yes. We are not editing our own podcast. Shout out to Nas and Ken at PayMac.
Thank you.
So we're not doing that because that's the sacrifice that we're willing to make. And I'm like you. Like, I like to buy things that either make my life easier or make me more efficient in my business. So I'm just glad that you learned the lesson sooner, because I don't think I had that lesson like year 2, 3 in my business. No, I definitely did.
We 6 months in. Thank you for your wisdom, because
that's the point. That's the point of this.
Yeah,
that's been the point of it. So thinking back, I know, this question might not be maybe a heavy question, but do you feel like you've given up something that you regretted?
Honestly, back to the piece about time, if I was able to know that the world was going to shut down in March 2020, I probably would have did a little bit more like December to March, because in my head...
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah, like in my head, I was just like, okay, I officially formed my business in January. I was like, I'm just going to put my head down for this first quarter. Like this first quarter, I'm just in hustle mode, I'm in grind mode, and we're going to get it done. And literally 15 days before the quarter ended, the world was like, and there's a virus that is shutting down everything that we know and exists, and you can no longer do anything fun. So I kind of wish I had a little bit more fun moments.
Right, the whole world.
Yeah, the entire world. So I kind of wish I had a little bit more fun moments in that first kind of January to March section. But outside of that, I haven't had a lot of regrets. I don't feel like I made a lot of mistakes yet. So I feel kind of okay with the sacrifices that I've made.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So I have one more question for you. So do you think that the sacrifices that you've made so far, do you think they're going to change over time? I know it's kind of hard to figure out what the future looks like, but do you think it's going to change over time as your business grows and things change?
Yeah. I think right now I'm in a space that I can solely focus on me because I don't have any attachments. So I don't have a kid. I don't have a husband. I don't have anybody that I need to give any of my time to or any of my money to, so I can make these like independent decisions on, nope, you're not going to have this, you're not going to have that, and it only affects me.
Right.
But I definitely think as time goes on and I do acquire those attachments, or however you want to say it, get into relationships.
Those blessings, they're blessings.
Yeah, those things. Once I get those things, I do think that my priorities will shift. And this almost is kind of gearing me towards a question for you, because when you started your business, you had the best attachment in the world, me.
Right.
And I'm curious. I'm curious, how are your sacrifices different, kind of, or similar even to the ones that I'm making kind of in these first couple of months of starting my business? What were some of the things that you sacrificed in the first couple of years? And then what are some things that you see that are a little bit different now?
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. We're in totally different spaces. And when I think back to, good gosh, 20 years ago, 18 years ago, when I started the accounting firm and the sacrifices that had to be made in that space, I always, and I said this to you when you were little, I always believed that short-term sacrifices brought about long-term gains.
Long-term gain. Mm-hmm.
I preach that to you a lot. Like the short-term, it's a short-term sacrifice, but it's a long-term gain. So for us, there were sacrifices. And for our listeners, just for your entertainment pleasure, Kenya came up with this word when she was little, and she said that we were highly poor. So we weren't poor because we were going to the opera and doing cultural things and seeing the Nutcracker and things like that. Like I took advantage of those things. So, side note for you guys that you have young kids, you go to the opera on Thursday. You go to the Nutcracker.
You go in there rehearsing.
You go to the rehearsal and you can get the tickets cheaper. And so because we were in this state of highly poorness, as Kenya said, there were things that we had to sacrifice and things that we didn't have. But then there are also things that we did have. And so for me, when I think about it, I sacrificed things like hanging out with my friends. Like my friends were just your friends' parents. Those were the only friends that I had at that particular time. And I sacrificed those things because one, I was investing in you, and two, I was also investing in this business. And I knew that my business was not going to be what I was doing right now. This is what I was going to be doing. I also think that, entrepreneurship caused me to sacrifice a career, like, a corporate career, guaranteed money. Like we could have been balling in the 90s instead of, now, kind of thing. Like now that you're not here.
Right.
So I sacrificed that. I sacrificed that guaranteed income. And when I think about it, sometimes I regret it, but it's only for a short period of time. Like sometimes I regret I had offers to go work for the federal government, and there are times when I regret it. Like, I'm like, man, I could have a nice little retirement set up now if I had worked for the government, and then I could come out and be a consultant and charge like ridiculous hours because I used to work for the government. So I think about those things and I think about those sacrifices, but I feel in the grand scheme of things, it's all been worth it. It's absolutely been worth it.
Do you feel like with, like thinking about those big Fed contracts, the different way that your career could have kind of shaped, do you think that what you gave up in kind of currency that you got in independence, like do you feel that like the independence and the freedom that you got with entrepreneurship was worth the sacrifices of maybe not the initial financial gain and security of it, but just like that idea of you rattle off your resume and that's literally all you. Like that was no PD funds, you didn't go to conventions, because the job flew you out. Like that was all you hustling and getting that done. And so in some ways, does that independence feel like that it was worth the things that you kind of gave up on the earlier sides?
Absolutely, without a doubt. When I think about that, I think that had I taken that route to go and be a federal employee, I don't think I would have ever went the entrepreneur route. I think I would have gotten comfortable because those federal salaries are nice. And so the thought of leaving that really, really nice salary to do something scary, to do something unknown, to do something that I didn't have the blueprint for, because we talked about how I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur anyway. And so I didn't have a blueprint for it. So I don't think I would have taken that risk. So I'm grateful that I didn't take that path, because this path has been so much better. And when you talk about the independence and the freedom, and then even when I think about all the lives that I've impacted, the people's whose lives I've made better, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. If I was at the feds, I would have been kicking down doors with carrying a gun or something.
I don't know about that, but maybe.
Yeah, but seriously, like revenue agents at the IRS, they carry guns. That was one of my hesitations, but that's another story. So yeah, I really do think that the sacrifices were totally worth it.
And, as always, I just have to say I'm so proud of you. I think that all of your sacrifices were totally worth it in my eyes. And if I count for anything, just being able to see you transform into the amazing woman that you are today was all the more worth it to be highly poor.
To be highly poor, because we're not poor anymore. So look at that.
Things change.
Yeah, they have changed. Yeah, and so for you as listeners, when you think about entrepreneurship, wherever you are on that journey, you have to realize that there are some sacrifices that you are going to have to make in your business. And sacrifices look different for everyone.
They absolutely do.
Like Kenya said, she's not trying to do anything. She's not a web designer or a copywriter or a graphic designer, none of those things. She just wants to stay in her lane and do that. And because she's a dualpreneur and she's not depending on her business to live, she can make those type of decisions in her business. So, that's one of the things that I want the listeners to take away with, like, sacrifices look different for everyone. And then my last takeaway is don't get so paralyzed with the thought of making a mistake that you do nothing. Because a lot of people are so afraid of making a mistake that they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And so, make the mistake, learn from it, and keep it moving. That's what I did. I've made a lot of mistakes. And as you listen to this podcast, I will be sharing them. And so, but make the mistake, learn from it, and keep it moving. So those are my takeaways. What you got?
I think, I'm pro pay people. I'm pro support the economy. So, you don't have to do everything. If you can make small financial sacrifices, I guarantee you it'll go a long way. Kind of, statistically speaking, even when you have the ability to collaborate with other people on your business, you go further because you have more eyes on it. You have people with different experiences that can give you a lot that, can broaden your audience. And then my other thing is, even though I pay people, you got to know that you determine your priorities and don't let anybody shame you into feeling like you should be doing certain things or you shouldn't be doing these things. You innately know what feels good to you and what doesn't. That's a great thing about being an entrepreneur. You get to determine like how much you want to work, when you want to work, where you want to work, like what that looks like for you. So don't try to put yourself into the Instagram ad box that you should be selling $5,000 classes to 10 million people and all of those things. You don't have to do that. This can be everything that you need it to be. So, let this journey be yours.
Yes. So that was excellent. I think this was a great show. What do you think? You think it was a great show?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's one of my faves.
Yeah. So listen, guys, we hope that you actually have taken something away from this show. And meet us here next week. And we're going to discuss dating as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already joined our online community, the Efficient CEO Movement on Facebook, please do so. That's where we will continue the conversation and provide you with tips, advice, and encouragement.
Follow us on social media at The CEO Launch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to take off.
This is a Clear Word production.